Hey, welcome everyone. I'm joined today by Hayley Brodeur. She's head of sales at Alisio. Hayley, thank you so much for joining the call today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Scott. I'm
You're
excited.
welcome. What led you to join Alisio? Tell us a little bit about your experience.
It was a long time coming. So Alysio has been around since I believe 2022. So they first did a version 1 and I consulted with a consultancy called Drivetrain for them during that time. And so that's how I got connected to the founders who I adore, Aaron and when they were going to kind of evolve the product into their version 2, I was looking for something new, something exciting. Although I was looking almost larger, it was in terms of company size. I took one look at their product and wanted to be a part of it, formally.
Yeah, cool.
Um, it was really awesome, but I've known them for some time. I've followed their journey for a while, and really, it was both the product, the team, and founders that you want to follow type things that really got me interested in joining full time. And
Yeah,
I'm very glad I
awesome.
did.
Yeah, very nice. So tell me about the product. What was it about that really drew you to the company?
Yeah, so in my past life, like I've done some RevOps reporting as well as consulting with Drivetrain. That wasn't really my forte at the company. I was doing more of the outbound and lead generation for the companies that we were consulting for, but we did have a RevOps arm with an incredible head of RevOps who taught me a lot about the importance of scaling that, as needed. Something that really stuck out to me about it was how simple it was. As I'm evaluating tools, I'm constantly looking at the AI landscape and go to market because it's constantly changing. And something that I'm noticing is like these workflows all need to be managed. So now go to market engineers have entered the conversation. And I think that that's kind of just a weak excuse to have a product that doesn't work or that's so difficult and so trying to make it work. You have to hire someone to manage it. And what I liked about what Alisio was doing was it's a 4-minute setup. You connect all your go-to-market tools to a single AI interface, and we're able to query that data as well as perform actions within those applications. So I haven't touched Salesforce since being at Alisio because I'm able to say, put in an opportunity for me for Wiz, for example, right? And it's able to do that for me. It creates the opportunity for me, can pull contacts from my data provider. Basically, it's just getting the entire context across my whole stack because it's all connected, but it's giving me a lot of efficiency gains as well as, helping me close more deals because I'm researching better, going out accounts with better intent signals that I can pull from various application. So it's a really, really exciting tool that I was like, I mean, I got it as soon as it's one of those things that you turn on and you understand what it does, and there's not a large learning curve to it.
Yeah.
And I've been obsessed with it ever since. So, and I think that's important too when you're selling, especially this early, that you really have to believe in the product. You really have to believe in what it's solving. And I really do. It's making all the go to market chaos and noise more simplistic. And that's really important.
So what's the big problem then that the market is going to see as a solution if they check out Alisio? What are you going to solve for them?
I talked to someone at a large corporation today who said she was in tears earlier that day over her operations because she understood that operations was breaking down, but didn't know why or how to fix it. And it's almost something where Alysio can actually diagnose that for you, where it's like, I'm able to ask it, like, how much more pipeline do I need to cover my number for this quarter? It's pulling my entire opportunity stack from my Salesforce, and it'll let me know, based on my closing dates, how much it is, and then actually weighting it for me in a forecast so that I can accurately forecast. My leaders now have more accurate reporting. And because I'm able to use just the interface to update that data in my CRM, there's A, no excuse for me not to have it in there, but B, it better for the leaders who are actually pulling those reports, dashboards, all those things, because they know that their reps are empowered with a tool that helps them, pull or actually puts in the data so that they want to do it. I think that anybody who works with salespeople will tell you that they don't like working in the CRM. I don't know. I think most people have said that out loud. I'm happy to say it out loud. We hate it. It's awful. So, like, even just pulling my transcript, we have an MCP and a Gong, being able to pull the transcript from Gong and then saying, can you fill out the fields in Salesforce using that transcript for that opportunity is huge because it's able to go and do that. I was in the call, I know what it is, but now I have to go record it. And that's something Alisio can do for you. And then it works all the way down to the SDR to the CRO because now the CRO is getting more accurate reporting out of Alysio as well and is able to see those insights better because their reps are actually putting in the data.
Yeah,
So I think data is always the biggest issue. That's always the biggest conversation that needs to be had.
for sure. So you can implement the analytics tools into Alisio just as well as the CRM and all of that. That can be tied together and searched in a single query. How does that work?
Yeah, if you need to, we're happy to build obviously custom connectors to any kind of tool that, a company needs, right? We need to enter a partnership. We can talk about what that looks like, but we're actually trying to kind of kill the need to have a forecasting tool as well as your Salesforce. All the data is in Salesforce. Alysio is making it easier for you to query in your natural language and say, you know what, can I get a report of the pipeline for my West team and versus my East and show me where the gaps are in both. They might be different, right? The West may have closed more deals that quarter, but has no pipeline left for next quarter, right? That would be a big gap. Whereas the East didn't close as much. They didn't hit their quota, but they have a ton of pipeline and deals that are in contracting stage, anything like that, whereas they may have a huge quarter next quarter, right? So where are the gaps in each? And a lot of times things aren't what it seems. It could seem on the outside like the West, right, has everything it needs because it's closing and it's making its number. But look underneath the surface. Are those real deals? Has Medic, the MEGPIC, whatever framework that you're following, has that been filled out in Salesforce? Do they all have an economic buyer? Even just pull that. Like ask Alisio, which opportunities on my teams do not have an economic buyer? And then, a good follow-up to that is like, can you check that rep's calendar for a meeting with this particular account? I want to be a part of it, right? And then it can add them to the meeting because you've got your calendar connected, data provider, CRM, Gong, anything that you're going to need. So it's really interesting, and I think I'm really excited to see kind of where people take it. The most powerful thing is when we see them be able to actually plug in their own data. It's one of those tools that works better with your own data, so it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So when companies, come on board, how are they managing their go-to-market strategy before coming to you and finding your solution? What do you see out there in terms of what people are doing that isn't serving them very well?
Well, they have like 6 tools for one thing, right? Like if you need Clary and you need all of these different tools to forecast, it gets really bloated. And a lot of times, I was even just talking with a VP of sales who told me that he has Sales Loft and he has Outreach. And I was like, stop. Wait, why? How did that happen? Right? Some sales leader brought in Sales Loft because they really liked Sales Loft. They left within 9 months because that's about the average tenure of a VP of sales right now, unfortunately. And so their predecessor was like, Sales Loft's no good. I don't like it. Let's go with Outreach is what I was using before at my old company, right? And now you have this crazy tech stack and you're like, all the data and everyone is using what they like to use. Okay, so you've got some reps in Outreach and you've got some in Sales Loft because that's just what they know. I mean, that's human nature. That's how we work. So you're not getting the insights from both to understand everything that's happening because you could look at dashboards in Sales Loft and get one piece of what's going on with your pipeline. Then you can look in Outreach and it's something else. And it's the same way with a lot of the different tools that they could have because not everybody has a Sales Loft and Outreach. That would just be an example. That when the data is siloed in these different applications, it doesn't give the holistic picture. And then you're pinging RevOps constantly because their reports are wrong, but it's not. It's just that their data doesn't match. And it doesn't match because your reps are saying it's one thing, your CRM is saying another, and so that's kind of the pain that we're solving right now. But
Yeah, very cool.
we honestly find new use cases for Alisio every day because essentially when you log in, it just looks like ChatGPT, but it's got all of your um, own like tech stack connected to it. So it's like your own personalized ChatGPT. And someone earlier today compared it to Perplexity. Very similar, but
So if they
again, it's
want some data, do they just basically ask for what they want?
yeah, they can ask for what they want. They can ask like, "Hey, pull my report for, maybe it's the end of the quarter, right? We need 3 more deals to get through. Can you pull those 3 deals and where they are in the stages and what needs to be done?" Like as an executive, it's the end of the quarter. That's where you're kind of coming in and saying, "Where are those deals at? I want to be a part of them and how can I help get this over the line, before the 31st?" And that's something that Alysio is surfacing, which is incredible.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's change gears just a little bit and talk about some of your sales and the process around your responsibilities at the company. So, what's your biggest challenge kind of scaling your sales team?
I would say that the biggest challenge right now is that we're small, right? We're an early stage startup and we're looking to be scrappy. But something that I've found that's been really exciting about AI startups is that sometimes they're scaling to like 20 million, 25 million in ARR with only 20 people. That's a million a person. That's pretty great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's kind of what I think AI has introduced, as well as creating a PLG motion for your product for people to be able to go test it out, see if it's theirs. And those leads come to your reps much warmer. And then they come also already kind of having an idea of what they like and what they don't like in the product. And so that's something too that's been amazing in terms of scaling the team. But I would say like the most important thing is keeping culture positive because I've been at startups where the culture has been an issue and you're never going to win that way when you've got product pointing their finger at sales who's pointing their finger at marketing. That's not going to work. So you have to be careful at this stage with everyone you hire because you get one hire in there that wrecks the culture, and that's that.
Yeah,
And so I think that startups, again, like this is something that AI startups, I talk to a lot of people who have been doing AI startups and struggling with the culture there. This is something that I really applaud the founders for here is making it a priority and making sure that each hire that they get, they know it's the right fit. Like they tell me all the time that their first developer, they interviewed 62 before landing on the one that we got, who is incredible and I understand why he got picked. So I think keeping the culture something that's important.
yeah, it sounds like you're spending a lot more time being really mindful about decisions you're making early on. Yeah,
Yes.
that's wise.
I mean, even just like there's a problem, so throw a person at it.
Yeah,
you know, doesn't really work because ultimately then you end up with a really bloated team. And then you have to do those layoffs that no one wants to do or likes doing. So it's like, be mindful about how you're growing right now because if there's something out there that can help or, because like I don't think that AI is going to replace anyone, frankly. I just did a post on this on LinkedIn. I checked out GPT-5 and, tried to get it to write me an outbound message. And I was like, forget it. This is
yeah,
horrible. So I don't think it's going to replace necessarily anyone, but it's more so like be mindful about how can you solve that problem without a person first, because growing too fast, I think is a lesson that a lot of SaaS companies learned in the early, 2021 to 2022 stages. And I think that AI startups are doing this better. And that's for all the reasons I already said, like opening a PLG motion and getting your few sales reps better leads, better reps, and it's working. So it's been kind of incredible watching some of these companies take off.
yeah. How are you approaching lead generation and prospect?
We do it the old fashioned way. I think in outbound right now, it's so important to personalize, but it's important to personalize the right way. Something that Alisio helps me do is I actually asked our product team if they would put like a Google search function into to the AI to allow it to actually search the web. It's been huge for me because I'm able to ask it about earnings calls from this past quarter, so Q2, and I'm getting a lot of insight on what are their leaders thinking about so that my outreach is that much more relevant to them. I can't know everything that they're doing, right? But I can go and see like what are they thinking about? What are their goals? Did they fall short last quarter? Is that because of operational breakdowns, right? I can make those messages more personal to them. But I mean, we have founders cold calling. Okay. Our founders are not normal founders, but they're on the phone. And I don't think that anything that Apple dropped in terms of like pre-screening is a bad thing at all. If anything, it's just helping cold callers find their buyers that do care about what value prop they're bringing, and it's making the conversations better. So I think and I think again, in a world where you can get a couple of their reps, for example, onto the platform, get their feedback on it, understand like what is the org look like, what's the structure. I love talking to AEs because I'm learning so much about the organization and how to get higher, but also how to help them out. A lot of times I show this to AEs, they want it immediately, but they're like, we're going to have to go through a process just like you do with any AI tool right now to get security clearances. So I want to get this to my leader. How can we do that? And that's where we kind of strategize and I build this internal champion. But it's also a very powerful message to say, hey, CRO of such and such company, 3 of your reps are using Alisio daily. They're using it every day. I would love to chat with you on what they're seeing and how the use cases differ from the AE to the CRO. They should care about that because there's people actually in their org that are vetting it for them first and have already found it to be a good fit, right? So it's also helping, like, help the executives spend their time on things that matter too and look like more of a resource than someone just asking for 30 minutes of their time.
Being a startup, how are you? Do you have a training department, or is training your reps on you? What's that process look like in terms of
Yeah, we do
training
not
them
have
and
a
stuff?
training department. In fact, we have a welcome, go ahead and get started.
Yeah,
Um, but I love our tool for that reason as well, because like for their list of accounts, for example, like I can just have Alysio pull. Can you pull the accounts that we have in the mid-market sector, something like that? It'll pull the accounts for me. Then the rep can start looking at, okay, where do I have connections into those accounts? Or it can help them start like prospecting into them sooner. And we're actually using our own tool as our own enablement tool. But again, we're keeping the team lean right now.
yeah. So you don't really have a training process to measure. I was going to ask about measuring your training and how do you know if it's effective? So when you do have someone that starts and they just hit the ground running, how do you check in and how do you measure and grow or develop like a new sales rep?
They'll check in with you.
Yeah, got it.
But what I love about like our particular team is again, we're very small and we're very much focused on our team goal. And we don't really necessarily care how we get there. So it's me booking a meeting for the SMB rep, right? Just because I know the VP of sales or, my CEO and a COO, as I said, are 2 of the greatest BDRs I've ever worked with. They get me leads as well. And so I think that a lot of times you're looking for those self-starters in the startups, and that's like part of that interview process, and getting that down, but and making sure that you're hiring a self-starter, but they'll check in with you to say, "Hey, you're connected to XYZ. Would you mind sending them a message?" They'll ghostwrite me a message and I can send it to them,
Right.
which I love. So, a lot of times, even just checking in, like I can go and look into, I can get those insights from my own tool to know kind of how they're doing, how many opportunities have they created, right? And checking in on those. But of course, running one-on-ones, pipeline reviews is important as well. But again, what I love about Alisio's culture is that the question is more of like, how can we support? Not why isn't X done? Why isn't X closed? It's
Yeah.
it's much more like how can we help? How can we help you get into that account? How can we go deeper? Those kinds of things.
Let's change gears a little bit and talk about your market. Being an AI startup, AI is kind of everywhere right now. I've been in healthcare for a while and everyone's really interested in AI, but really slow to pull the trigger because they're a little afraid of the AI. They're afraid of like compliance. Is it going to do something that's going to hurt the company? So what resistance do you typically see when introducing an AI solution to some of your prospects?
Yeah, so I've worked in AI since I would say like since the boom of it. I didn't know about it before. I never pretend to. Definitely when ChatGPT came out, I was like, how do I use this to my absolute advantage? At that time, I was working for founders who were very, very supportive of me getting my prompt engineering license or certificate. So I did. I went to a prompt engineering class and kind of learned how to do that, how to give it background, how to write a system prompt, all those things, so that I could better understand the industry and who I'm speaking with. Previously, I was selling to head of AI roles, and that's a very like complicated sale, with a lot of skepticism because you're having to bring in stakeholders who know better and then stakeholders who pretend like they know, but they don't actually know, so they are bringing up questions and it's just about objection handling in a way that's and I think it's setting the expectation sometimes with them. Like, it's not going to be perfect. Like, I don't think anyone should ever say that about AI because it's not. It's more about setting it up, using it responsibly. And again, it's not necessarily going to replace anybody for you, but it will make you yourself faster and better. With this particular tool with Alisio, we are coming up a lot on like obviously connecting your Salesforce to an LLM business. That's essentially what we've built is tough. It's tough. I sell in the enterprise sector and all I want to do is give them the tool because, we offer a trial. And again, it's much more effective with your own data. So like it's just getting through that security layer and who do you need to get to show, your SOC 1 type 2. That's big. Or excuse me, SOC 2 type 2. Or, you need to at least have SOC 1 or you're not going to get anywhere. But definitely having those things sets you apart, but it takes time. And then it's making sure that the prospects stay interested and engaged enough through that process to then test the tool and setting up like, a pilot that will set them up for success and using that time, the security processes to set up a great, pilot process, I guess. But that's the hardest thing is getting through permissions for sure.
So what are the typical objections that you see when you're trying to close someone on your solution?
The objections that we get are sometimes like more around the AI just itself. And they kind of want to know how are we how is this model or this particular AI different in terms of knowing the sales processes, right? What I love about our tool is that our team has developed, we're using Anthropic, but also some custom models. And the models there all have system prompts that help them better understand, like, you don't have to give it the context all the time about it being that you're a salesperson, you're doing this, can you help me with this, right? And you have to write that all out when you're just typing to like a Perplexity or to an OpenAI or to Anthropic on its own. It has that context already, and so we kind of have to demonstrate that. And that's why I love like being able to say, can you forecast for me like what my quarter looks like right in this moment? Because that's a great way to show the way that the AI is weighting things because it's very custom to us in terms of like our close rate and, what that looks like. And I think that that's always a wow factor for them to say, okay, so this is not only an AI agent, it's a sales AI agent that understands revenue, which is really important.
When you have a customer, it's assuming that they have a certain platform already in place for their data. So what if they don't have a lot of processes in place? They don't have a lot of good data management. Does your solution work there, or can you provide a solution for someone like that?
I don't mind when they don't have like a large tech stack. Frankly, I think that that's when, you can still get a good amount of value out of the platform. Like, for example, I was just talking to someone who was like, I live out of my email. It's just my email, me, email, email. And I was like, okay, well, who's your email provider? And they were like, Outlook. And I was like, great. Well, we connect to Outlook. So as simple as the calendar connection and the email connection is very powerful because you can say, can you pull up that email that I sent to so and so yesterday? Or have they responded? Or can you draft a follow up for me to, and then you can like send the email right from there. Then with the calendar, I mean, the first thing I'm asking Alisio every day is, can you prep me on all my calls? And then I could pull out a certain call and I said, can you double click into that call for me and go deeper? And it'll pull more about the person I'm working with, the company they're at, things like that. So if you even just have a G Suite subscription, this
Yeah,
tool can work really well for you.
that sounds cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. So, what is your most effective customer acquisition strategy? What are you relying on? What
Connections.
connections?
Definitely
Word of mouth?
connections. We're young. You need to have the trust. And a lot of times, people will ask about the startup and they are like, I'm starting the pitch, I'm talking about the solution. They're like, can you back up? Tell me about the company. Let me know, like how much have you raised? Who have you raised from? Things like that. People will ask me because, and I know why they're asking. They're sussing out how viable a startup we are. Because if they invest all this time and money into getting their reps to adopt the solution, they want to know that we're going to be there in 5 years, right? Because I mean, I talk to salespeople all the time who are like, I'm not moving where my salespeople live more than once a year, which I was like, got to give us more credit than that, but okay. And so they don't want to make the investment without knowing the viability of the startup. Having the trust in terms of like a connection to one of our advisors, maybe we have great advisors, or to our CEO who has great connections. Even we hired a somewhat of an evangelist. He led the global revenue operations for Alteryx for years, and he joined Alysio to help inform the product strategy because this was a pain that he was feeling in his global role. It's great to be able to have him speak on the product and how he designed it and how he wanted the product to be because he's trying to solve for the problem of the buyers or at least the champions that we're talking to, which is usually in RevOps. And so having a strategy like that, like get an expert who's a advisor for you or a someone who wants to come on and do strategy for you all because that's huge. They don't want to hear from me on how I'm necessarily using it. They want to hear from him. And I love bringing him to sales calls because it helps us win that much more. That trust again is being built better. I used to work with SAs at my old company and I loved working with SAs because it was like this partnership that you had on the call and you can discuss it after, like, what did we do wrong? What could we do better? It's been pretty incredible having Mason for those things.
Yeah, that's awesome. A couple more questions then. So, where do you see the next big challenge in the AI space moving forward? Like either with you all or just in general for companies?
I think my answer would have been differently if I had done this before GPT-5 came out. I think the biggest challenge is like, where do you go from here? Figuring out, because AI is not great for everything. There are a lot of tools out there that claim a lot of things that just aren't true and or like they're really having product challenges with the AI because it's not the deterministic actions that SaaS was. And you can, what we love about our product is that it's a combination between deterministic and non-deterministic actions and putting a human in the loop. Like, if I put in a new opportunity to Salesforce, it'll populate it all for me first so I can hit approve, which is huge. But it's keeping the humans in the loop, I think, with tempering expectations because now people are figuring out like, no, it can't do everything and it won't. So making sure that sellers are setting that expectation, laying that groundwork, and then, the models may not improve a whole lot. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't think that GPT-5 was a huge step up from GPT-4, frankly.
Seems a briefer, seems less verbose to me.
Yeah, I think the writing got worse, if that's possible.
Yeah.
So it's more so like I'll leave that to the big guys in terms of like what's next with AI because what's coming out now, I think that the last one that really took the world by storm was DeepSeek. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But I think it's like where do you take it from here and what applications does it work best in? Like where does it work the best? And figuring that out. I think we have something pretty awesome, but a lot of other people have built awesome things too. So
Yeah,
I'm
for
just
sure.
excited to see where it goes. But the foundation models, it's interesting to me. That was a really interesting launch.
Yeah. So since what you do is awesome, let's have where can people learn more about Lisio and how can they get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your product?
Yeah, absolutely. Please, I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. So I think I'm just Hayley Brodeur on LinkedIn in that URL. Please try to find me. But we also have just a book a demo page on our site, and we are planning to launch our own PLG pretty soon here. And so you'll actually be able to kind of go in and select like a free trial, free plan to just start things out. But every single person at Alisio is selling regardless of their role. So
Yeah,
reach out to any of us because we'd
cool.
be happy to take you through it and see if it would be a fit. Because to your point, Scott, it won't be for everyone given that it's kind of restricted to the tech stack that you're using. But even if you're fed up with not having calendar visibility, we can help with that.
Um, Haley, thanks so much for joining today. This is a really cool conversation. I love learning about different technologies, and really sounds like you all have a really cool service.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Scott.